Hello everyone, and welcome back to another Anime Villainous how-to video. I'm Chaos in the Sky, as per usual, and today we'll be looking at how to play as Kyubey from Puella Magi Madoka Magica in Anime Villainous. Kyubey is what's known as an incubator, an immortal alien race that seeks to harvest energy from human emotions. To accomplish this, Kyubey presents itself as a benevolent creature that grants wishes to young girls, transforming them into magical girls as a result. Unfortunately for these unsuspecting magical girls, being granted a wish by Kyubey dooms them to the eventuality of becoming a witch. This is precisely what Kyubey hopes for, and actively works to hasten this process by driving the girls further into despair. In doing so, Kyubey can then harvest energy from these witches at the cost of the girls' lives, for which it feels no remorse. Kyubey's goal is to create witches out of magical girls, and the way it does this is by first making girls into magical girls by granting their wishes. Because of this, Kyubey's objective in Anime Villainous is to play all 5 wishes. Wishes are effect cards found in Kyubey's villain deck, and that's the first thing we're going to cover because there's a lot more that goes into this seemingly simple objective than you might expect. The 5 wish cards are all zero-cost effects, and their names are Hopeful Wish, Obsessive Wish, Lonely Wish, Selfish Wish, and Desperate Wish. When you play one of these wishes, it does 2 things. Firstly, it plays a unique hero to your location, and secondly, the wish then removes itself from the game. It does not go into your discard pile. Once you've played all 5 wishes, and as a result played all 5 unique heroes, you enter Showdown. You'll notice I said all 5 unique heroes, and I do mean all. There are only 5 heroes that Kyubey has to deal with, and even more than that, none of them are in the Fate deck. Instead, each of Kyubey's 5 heroes are tiles that are only played when Kyubey plays their respective wish. They are never played by an opponent, only by Kyubey. Because playing the wishes plays these heroes, Kyubey will have no choice but to defeat all 5 of them to complete its showdown phase. So let's go over each of the 5 heroes that corresponds to each wish, since they also tie into Kyubey's villain ability. The heroes are 5 magical girls: Madoka, Hamura, Mami, Kyoko, and Sayaka. You can also see which wish corresponds to which girl, as each wish says the girl's specific name. Also important to note is something we've never seen in Anime Villainous until this point, which is that each girl has an activatable ability. Kyubey has no way of activating, and these abilities are largely a negative for Kyubey anyway. That's because the Fate deck can activate them, and is one of the main ways that opponents will cause Kyubey problems and slow down its progress. Let's go over each ability, and then we'll look at the Fate card that can activate them. Each girl's ability is rather straightforward. When Sayaka is activated, the one that activated her may move an ally to any location. For Kyoko, she causes Kyubey to shuffle a random card from its hand back into its deck. Mami forces Kyubey to lose 2 power, while Hamura lets the one activating her play the top card of Kyubey's Fate deck. Lastly is Madoka, who removes up to 2 -1 strength tokens from a hero, potentially even herself, when she's activated. You'll also notice that each magical girl has a different strength value, with Sayaka at the lowest with 3, going up by 1 for each girl until reaching 7 with Madoka. All of these abilities are troublesome for Kyubey, but as you probably noticed, the abilities become more damaging the stronger the hero is. So how are these abilities activated? There is one card, albeit with 4 copies, in the Fate deck that can activate, which is Transformation. When an opponent plays Transformation, they get to activate one hero. Make sure you realize that the hero must be in play to be activated, so Kyubey must have already played that hero's wish. But activating a hero isn't all that Transformation does. After the hero's activated ability is resolved, Transformation also lets the one playing it move the activated hero to any location. Keep in mind that moving the hero is optional, so your opponent doesn't have to move them. But hero movement is very important for Kyubey, so you'll see why this is so vital very soon. Now that we know how both wishes and the hero tiles work, we can talk about Kyubey's ability. Kyubey's ability is that when you clash with the hero, you then flip that hero over and play the revealed ally to your location. This is pivotal to Kyubey's gameplay, as each of the 5 hero tiles have a second side to them that is an ally who benefits Kyubey greatly. However, you may notice that Kyubey has 0 strength. The weakest magical girl is Sayaka with a strength of 3, and they only get stronger from there. Kyubey has no way of making itself stronger, which means that instead, Kyubey will have to make the heroes weaker if it wants to clash with them. Before we look into the myriad ways that Kyubey can weaken the girls, let's look at their ally forms instead. Each magical girl turned witch has a unique ability that benefits Kyubey, just as they had unique abilities as heroes. Sayaka flips over to reveal Octavia, and upon being flipped over and thus played, Octavia lets you find and put Tragedy into your hand. Tragedy is a powerful effect card that we'll cover later in the video, but for now, let's focus on the other witches. Kyoko flips over to become Ophelia, who makes it where, at the end of your turn, you draw until you have 5 cards in hand instead of the usual 4. After Ophelia, we have Candeloro, who is the flip side of Mami. Candeloro makes it where the cost to play effects is reduced by 1 power, a major boon for Kyubey. Next is Hamulili, the flip side of Hamura. Hamulili makes it where opponents cannot reveal more than 1 card from the top of Kyubey's Fate deck during Fate actions, majorly narrowing down the option to harm Kyubey with a Fate. And at last we have Madoka, who flips over to Kriemhild Gretchen. When Kriemhild Gretchen is in play, at the end of your turn, you get to choose a hero. That hero then loses 1 strength. This is an incredibly useful ability, given how Kyubey wants to weaken each hero to then clash with them. Another important thing to notice is that each of these allies has 1 strength higher than their hero counterpart, making them some of Kyubey's strongest allies both in ability and strength. Now that we finally covered everything having to do with wishes and the hero/ally tiles, let's get into the rest of Kyubey's villain deck. First, we'll look at the only 2 items that Kyubey has, which is Labyrinth and Grief Seeds. Labyrinth is one of Annaville's patented location attachers, similar to Loxus's Dark Ecriture. When played, you attach it to any location you want, just so long as that location doesn't already have a labyrinth. From then on, at the end of your turn, if there is an ally at that labyrinth's location, you can choose a hero at that location. That hero then loses 1 strength. This is going to be your most consistent way of weakening heroes, aiming to get them to 0 strength so that Kyubey can then clash with them. There are only 2 copies of Labyrinth in your deck, so be sure to put some thought into where you want to place them since they attach to their location. While Labyrinth focuses on weakening heroes, Grief Seeds is an item that focuses on helping Kyubey get more power. When played, Grief Seeds are attached to Kyubey and make it where each time an ally is discarded from your territory, you gain 1 power. Allies getting discarded is something that both Kyubey's villain deck and Fate deck can cause, so Grief Seeds is very important to have in play. With both of these items relying on allies, let's take a look at the allies Kyubey has in its deck. We already saw that Kyubey can get 5 different allies by clashing with its 5 heroes, but there are also an additional 5 allies in the villain deck that Kyubey can play like normal. Our first 2 allies are Kirsten and Elsa Maria. Kirsten's ability is that when you move a hero in your territory, you may play Kirsten from your hand to that hero's new location, paying her cost of 1. We haven't covered them yet, but Kyubey has cards in its villain deck that can let it move heroes that will allow you to use Kirsten's ability. You can also just play Kirsten normally instead of waiting for an opportunity for her ability. Elsa Maria's ability is that when Elsa Maria is discarded from your territory, each hero at her previous location loses 1 strength. Given that Kyubey wants to weaken heroes, and that there are cards in both the villain and Fate deck that can discard allies, this is a very useful ability for Kyubey's game plan. Following those 2, we have Gertrude and Charlotte. Gertrude, when played to a location that has no labyrinth, allows you to choose a labyrinth already in your territory and attach it to Gertrude's location. This is the only way you can move a labyrinth after it has been played, since they attach to locations. Given there are only 2 labyrinths, Gertrude can be a major help if you need a labyrinth at a location and you've already played both of them. Charlotte, meanwhile, lets you pay any amount of power during your turn. When you do, Charlotte then gets +1 strength for each power that you paid this way until the end of your turn. Thanks to this, so long as you have the power to spare, you can have Charlotte reach whatever level of strength you may need. Kyubey's final ally is Walpurgisnacht, which I assure you is a word I just love having to pronounce. This ally has a staggering cost of 8 power. However, the cost to play it is reduced by 1 for each wish that Kyubey has played. This means if you've played all 5 wishes, the cost to play this ally is reduced to just 3. What makes this ally worth the cost is its ability, which is that at the end of your turn you choose a hero at its location. That hero then loses 1 strength. This can even combo with a labyrinth, letting you weaken a hero by 2 strength at the end of your turn if both this ally and a labyrinth are at the hero's location. Moving on from Kyubey's allies, we're now going to look at Kyubey's effects that aren't wishes. First up are Kyubey's 3 2-cost effects, as they combo very well with some of the allies we've just covered. Firstly, we have Persuasion, one of Kyubey's most vital cards. All it does is move a hero to your location, which given how labyrinths are locational, as is the very expensive ally, this is very important for Kyubey. Transformation, as we covered earlier, can move heroes, getting them away from labyrinths or your allies, and Persuasion is how you can get heroes back to where you want them. It also combos well with Kirsten, letting you use her ability to play her without a play-a-card action. Secondly, we have Tragedy, another card that Kyubey cares very much about. Tragedy lets you perform a Vanquish action. However, this Vanquish action ignores strength tokens. That means even if you have a hero that has -1 strength tokens on them, those tokens mean nothing for the Vanquish caused by Tragedy. You have to have allies that equal or exceed the base strength value of the hero you're trying to vanquish. You may be wondering why you would use Tragedy for Vanquishes if it ignores strength reduction, and the reason is that Kyubey has no Vanquish actions. The only way you can perform a Vanquish is by using Tragedy, and there's only one copy of Tragedy as is. It's difficult for Kyubey to reduce the strength of every single hero down to 0 to clash with them, which is why Tragedy lets Kyubey use allies to circumvent the need to weaken heroes, and just defeat them that way instead. Tragedy pairs very well with Charlotte due to her ability. Also, as you may recall, if you use your ability to clash with Sayaka and flip her over to reveal Octavia, Octavia will then let you add Tragedy into your hand. Our third 2-cost effect is Madness, which can work with any ally, but pairs especially well with Elsa Maria's ability. When you play Madness, you discard an ally from a location that has a labyrinth, and then choose a hero at that location. That hero then loses 2 strength. Since Elsa Maria's ability is that if she's discarded, all heroes at her previous location lose 1 strength, this works especially well, making it a 3 strength loss for the targeted hero, and any other heroes present lose a strength as well. Following those 3 cards, Kyubey has 3 other slightly cheaper effects. Charade lets you look at the top 4 cards of your deck plus 1 for each hero in your territory. You can then discard any number of those cards and return the rest to the top in any order, a great way to dig for the cards you need fast, such as Labyrinths or Wishes. Torment lets you choose a hero at your location, then have that hero lose 1 strength. It's a simple but quite effective ability, getting Kyubey just a little bit closer to being able to clash. The final effect in Kyubey's deck is Omnipresence, which lets you choose a card from your deck, pay its cost, and play it, shuffling your deck afterward. Be sure to realize Omnipresence only gets you a card from your deck, not your discard pile. This card is vital for when you can't get to Grief Seeds or a Labyrinth because they shuffled low in your deck, or if you want to get a specific wish out to play a specific hero. With effects covered, we're going to look at Kyubey's schemes next, of which the little alien cat has 3. Immortality triggers after the targeted player plays a card from Kyubey's Fate deck. Once triggered, Kyubey then gets to choose up to 3 cards in its discard pile and shuffle them into its deck. This is great for getting back lost allies or effects you've already used and want to see again. It also helps if you discarded some of your wishes early because you didn't want to play out heroes at first. Our next scheme is a very unique one and works differently from any other. When you play Machinations, you put it above a location in an opponent's territory. Normally, schemes go above a player's portrait, but this card is an exception. When the targeted player moves to that location with Machinations above it, that then triggers Machinations. Once triggered, Machinations lets Kyubey move a hero in its territory to any location. This card also lets Kyubey use Kirsten's ability, even outside of its own turn, which is important to keep in mind. Lastly, we have Alien Morality, which triggers when the targeted player shuffles their deck. Once triggered, each hero in Kyubey's territory loses 1 strength. A very strong ability with a fairly inevitable trigger, but in exchange, it costs an expensive 3 power to play. We've got one final card to look at in Kyubey's villain deck, and that's its one and only form, Companion. Companion also has 0 strength, and changes Kyubey's ability to be that each location with a hero gains a play-a-card action. Given how Kyubey plays heroes to itself and most often has to whittle them down to 0 strength, this ability helps to get more play-a-cards to accomplish that. Kyubey can choose to discard Companion at the end of its turn, and there's no other way to discard it. There are 2 very important things to realize about this. First of all, Kyubey can still clash with 0 strength heroes while its form is Companion, but since it doesn't have its default ability, those heroes do not get flipped and turned into allies. Instead, they just get discarded, same as if they were defeated in a Vanquish by Tragedy. Secondly, Kyubey can choose to discard Companion at the end of its turn. This means you cannot discard Companion and then clash using Kyubey's default ability, as clashing must happen before the end of your turn. It's very important to remember this when planning to clash with heroes, but having Companion in play. We're very nearly done. We just have 5 more cards to cover in the Fate deck. We already talked about Transformation earlier, which activates the heroes and moves them, but there are 3 other effects, 1 item, and the challenge in Kyubey's Fate deck. The first effect is Hunting Witches, which discards an ally when played. This can discard any ally, including the ally tiles that you get from clashing with heroes, or the very expensive 8-cost ally with the name and the face. Next up we have Friendship, the deadliest of anime powers. When played, this effect removes up to 3 -1 strength tokens from Kyubey's territory. Strength tokens only ever end up on heroes, so it will set back your progress on weakening the girls to be able to clash with them. The last effect is Body Destruction. When played, the one playing it moves Kyubey to any location and sets Body Destruction aside. When Kyubey would next move, which would be Kyubey's following turn, Body Destruction is discarded instead, forcing Kyubey to stay at the location the fading player chose for its turn. Most likely at a location where Kyubey can't get as much progress as it would like. Following all of those effects, we have the only item in Kyubey's Fate deck, Time Stop. Something you may have been considering throughout this video is that having no heroes in the Fate deck or territory until Kyubey plays a wish means that Kyubey can have free reign of its territory until it decides to play out heroes. However, Time Stop is a Fate card that prevents that. When played, Time Stop gets attached to a location, and it covers the top actions at that location. Just like how a hero being at a location works, Kyubey is unable to take any of those covered actions. The only way to discard Time Stop is its own ability, which is that at any time, if there is a hero at Time Stop's location, you then discard Time Stop. Kyubey will have to play or move a hero to Time Stop's location to get rid of it, making it a major annoyance, as the one playing Time Stop will probably put it somewhere that Kyubey doesn't like for heroes to be at. Also keep in mind that if you Fate Kyubey and play Time Stop to a location with a hero for some reason, that will cause Time Stop to immediately discard itself. So, don't do that. Finally, we have Kyubey's challenge, Back to the Start. While Back to the Start is in play, Kyubey cannot defeat heroes, whether it be by clashing or using tragedy. Back to the Start is discarded at the end of Kyubey's turn if Kyubey has either played a wish that turn or is in showdown. This means that Back to the Start will force Kyubey to play out another hero by using a wish, which could cause it problems as Kyubey prefers to deal with only so many heroes at a time. If Kyubey is in showdown, it isn't quite as bad, but because Back to the Start only discards at the end of Kyubey's turn, it's guaranteed to cost Kyubey at least one more turn before it can finish showdown. With that, we've covered everything needed for you to know how to play as Kyubey. An alien willing to do whatever it pleases even at the cost of others, playing as Kyubey will require you to use witches to weaken magical girls and drag them into despair to further your objective. If you have any questions about Kyubey, feel free to leave a comment and I'll do my best to answer. Also, look at the description for the playlist to see all the other anime Villainous how-to videos so you can learn about any other characters that interest you. Thank you for watching this video, and I hope to see you again for more anime Villainous videos in the future. Until then, farewell.